GM has given us some of the most iconic muscle cars of all time. The Camaro, the Chevelle SS, the Pontiac GTO, you name it. But what if I told you that some of GM's most insane muscle cars were left behind, buried in history, or simply never got the love they deserved? Today we're diving into 5 of the most unusual and forgotten GM muscle cars that you never knew existed. And trust me, some of these are so wild you won't believe they were real. Let's get right into it. At number 5, we have the 1969 Chevrolet Astro II XP880, a futuristic mid-engine muscle car that could have changed GM's history forever. Now, we all know that Chevy's Corvette stayed front-engine for decades before finally going mid-engine with the C8 Corvette in 2020. But what if I told you GM was experimenting with this idea way back in the late 60s? The Astro II XP880 was a radical concept car designed to go toe-to-toe with the best Ferraris of the era. Under its sleek, low-slung body sat a massive 427 cubic-inch V8, making it an absolute beast on paper. It looked more like a supercar than a muscle car, but GM ultimately scrapped the project before it could hit production. Imagine if Chevy had gone through with it. We could have had a mid-engine Corvette 50 years ago. The Buick GSX was already one of the meanest muscle cars to hit the streets in 1970. But what if I told you Buick had planned an even more powerful version that could have dominated the muscle car wars? Meet the 1970 Buick GSX Stage 2 prototype, a car that was so powerful GM got cold feet and shut it down before it ever had a chance to shine. The standard GSX was no slouch. It had a 455 cubic-inch V8 that was already pushing out 360 horsepower and 510 lb-ft of torque. But Buick engineers weren't satisfied. They developed a Stage 2 version that added radical performance upgrades, including a hotter cam, better heads, and a reworked intake manifold. Unofficial reports say this beast made over 500 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful muscle cars of the era. It had the potential to crush the Hemi Cudas and LS6 Chevelles of the time. But just as things were getting interesting, GM pulled the plug. They feared that such a powerful car would put Buick in direct competition with Chevrolet's Corvette, which was a big no-no for corporate politics. So the Stage 2 never made it into dealerships, and today it remains a forgotten legend. At number 3, we have a muscle car that was built for the track but forgotten on the streets. The 1973 Chevrolet Chevelle Laguna 454. Now, by 1973, the muscle car era was dying fast thanks to strict emissions regulations and rising insurance costs. But Chevy wasn't ready to give up just yet. The Chevelle Laguna was designed specifically for NASCAR racing, featuring a sleeker, more aerodynamic front end compared to the regular Chevelle. Under the hood, you could get the legendary 454 cubic-inch LS4 big block V8, producing 275 horsepower, which was actually a lot for the mid-70s. NASCAR teams loved this car. It handled better at high speeds and dominated the track. In fact, the Chevelle Laguna won 34 NASCAR races between 1973 and 1977. But despite its success on the track, the Laguna was overlooked as a street machine. Emissions laws choked its power, and after 1976, GM dropped it entirely. Coming in at number 2 is the 1985 Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2, a car that looked fast but unfortunately wasn't. Now you might be wondering, why does this car look so weird? Well, that's because Pontiac designed it for aerodynamics. It had a bubble-back rear window and a sloped nose to help it slice through the air at high speeds. This was another NASCAR homologation special, similar to Chevy's Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe. But here's the problem. Pontiac forgot to give it any real power. Under the hood was a gutless 165 horsepower 5.0 LV8. Definitely not what you expect from a muscle car. The Grand Prix 2+2 was a car that had all the right looks but none of the muscle. And finally, at number 1, we have the 1977 Pontiac Can-Am, one of the most promising muscle cars that was killed before it ever had a chance to shine. Based on the Pontiac Lemons, the Can-Am was built as a high-performance version with a TA 6.6-liter V8 from the Trans Am, producing 200 horsepower, a solid number for the late 70s. It also came with a shaker hood scoop, unique graphics, and a killer stripe package. Pontiac planned to sell 5,000 units, but here's where things went wrong. A factory mold used for the car's unique rear spoiler broke, and instead of fixing it, GM just canceled production altogether. Only around 1,300 Can-Ams were ever built, making it one of the rarest Pontiac muscle cars ever. If GM had stuck with it, the Can-Am could have been a true legend. Which one of these cars blew your mind the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you love rare muscle cars, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more hidden gems. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.